There was a time I thought my life had ended, and yet I was still breathing. I remember lying there, shattered, broken, my bones, my dreams, my confidence, all in pieces. But somewhere between that silence and the hospital lights, something else was born. A tiny voice, whispering, "Now what?" Not why me, but now what? And that became my first lesson. Pain doesn't ask for permission, but growth does. You have to choose it. Even when your soul feels like glass, even when your hope is bleeding out, you still have to ask, what will I do with this pain? I chose to become something I had never met before, my own savior. People looked at me and saw a wheelchair, but I saw freedom. Freedom from the lies I believed for years. Freedom from the voice that said, "You're not enough." Freedom from the illusion that I had to walk to move forward. Because here's the truth. Your legs may carry your body, but it's your will that carries your soul. And I chose to walk with my will. I started to paint, not because I was perfect, but because I was tired of being invisible. Every color I put on that canvas was a scream the world refused to hear. Every stroke was rebellion. Every shade was my new definition of beauty. And that is my next truth. You don't have to be whole to create something beautiful. In fact, brokenness adds colors you never knew existed. People will tell you what you cannot do, but sometimes their words are mirrors reflecting their own fears. Don't accept limitations spoken by people who have never lived your storm. You owe yourself more than survival. You owe yourself purpose. And purpose doesn't arrive with applause. It arrives in silence, when you're alone with your truth and still choose to rise. They said, "You're so strong." And I smiled. Not because I agreed, but because they didn't see the nights I cried without sound. The mornings I didn't want to open my eyes. The battles I fought, not with the world, but with myself. Strength doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just breathes. Sometimes it just keeps going. And I want you to know you don't have to roar to be brave. Bravery is choosing to feel everything fully. The fear, the pain, the doubt, and still taking one more step. One more smile, one more attempt, one more moment of not giving up. People often ask me how I became confident, and I always tell them the truth. I didn't. Confidence didn't find me. I created it. From silence, from scars, from moments that broke me into pieces and forced me to rebuild without the manual. Confidence is not standing tall. It's standing anyway, even if your knees are shaking. Your worth is not up for debate. Not with society, not with beauty standards, not with those who left you when you needed love the most, and not even with the voice inside you that sometimes whispers, "You are not enough." Because that voice, it's not yours. It was planted by someone else. Rip it out. Replace it with truth. You are not your failures. You are not your rejections, not the weight of others' expectations. You are the fire that stayed lit when the world tried to put you out. And if no one ever told you this before, let me be the first to say it. You matter. Even if your life doesn't look like anyone else's. Even if your timeline is slower. Even if your wounds still bleed sometimes, you are still worthy of love, of peace, of joy. Not someday. Today. I often think about the word broken. People throw it around like it's something shameful, as if broken means worthless. But have you ever looked closely at shattered glass when sunlight hits it? It sparkles. It reflects. It dazzles in ways that whole glass never could. And that's what pain did to me. It didn't erase me. It refracted me. It made me see things I would have never seen from the mountaintop. Because real perspective isn't found in success, it's found in survival. It's in that moment when everything goes dark and you discover you are your own light. And you shine not because the world allows you to, you shine because you refuse to live in shadows anymore. Let me tell you something no one told me early enough. You don't need to fix everything to begin again. You can start right now, with the fear, with the confusion, with the aching heart and the unanswered questions. You don't need the full picture. You just need one reason. One reason to get up, to try, to believe, even after the fall. For me, it was the realization that I didn't survive to just exist. I survived to create, to feel deeply, to give hope to others who had forgotten their own strength. You don't need a stage to make a difference. You just need authenticity and scars you're not afraid to show. Because your vulnerability, that is your power. I stopped trying to look perfect when I realized my imperfections were the reason people listened. Not because I had answers, but because I had lived through the questions. And so have you. You've walked through things no one knows. You've swallowed tears and smiled anyway. You've stayed quiet to keep peace you never received in return. And yet here you are, listening, breathing, becoming. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that hides your pain just to make them comfortable. You are not a mask. You are not a decoration. You are a voice. And it's time the world heard it. Sometimes people say to me, "You inspire me because you're still smiling after all that's happened." And I smile again. Not because life has become easier, but because I've made peace with what I cannot change. And that is the next lesson I learned the hard way. Acceptance is not giving up. It is growing up. There's a moment when you stop fighting the past, not because you forget it, but because you finally learned how to carry it differently. The burden doesn't leave, but your back becomes stronger. And one day you realize that you no longer cry for what's lost, you smile for what you found in its place. You. Not the version shaped by the world, not the one taught to please, to perform, to be perfect, but the one who lived through the storm unmasked, unfiltered, real. And real is rare. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need a spotlight to be seen. You don't need permission to be proud of yourself. When I looked in the mirror after the accident, I didn't recognize the face staring back. My bones were rebuilt, my body was stitched, but my identity had to be reborn from scratch. And that was terrifying. But that's the beauty of brokenness. It gives you the chance to rewrite everything. You don't have to be who you were before the pain. You get to become someone wiser, softer, more alive. You learn how to walk through rooms that once silenced you and speak without shaking. You learn how to forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. And peace doesn't come from changing what hurt you. It comes from transforming what it taught you. Let me say this to your heart. Your story is not too much. Your emotions are not too heavy. Your healing is not too slow. You are exactly where you're meant to be, in process, in pain, in progress. And you are doing better than you think. Even if no one claps, even if no one notices, even if today feels like survival again. The world doesn't always see quiet victories, but I do. You're here. And that means something. That means everything. I want you to think about the version of yourself that once begged for love in all the wrong places. The one who stayed quiet to be accepted. The one who dimmed their light just to fit in. The one who said, "I'm fine," when your heart was screaming. That version of you, they were never weak. They were surviving. And surviving takes courage the world will never understand. So if no one's told you lately, let me. I'm proud of you. Not for pretending to be strong, but for finally admitting where it hurts. For showing up for yourself even on the days you couldn't move mountains, only breathe. There's a sacred kind of strength in those who rebuild with nothing in their hands but hope. Not the kind of hope the world gives, the shallow,